There's a lot of work on climate change and its possible impact. Many of the greatest worries are that this will affect the developing regions the most, for various reasons that we can talk about. How that's going to affect the poor there, how it's going to affect opportunities for people to get out of poverty, for the countries to develop, is a great concern. So most of the attention has been going into how do we stop global warming and climate change resulting from it. This is extremely important. Some of this climate change will happen even if we were to stop any net emission of greenhouse gases now. And also, we're not going to stop right now, unfortunately. So we have to realize people are going to be affected, and we have to think about what they can do and what they will do to adapt when that happens. So we're looking at how people adapt, why they adapt the way that they do, and what are some of the implications going to be of those adaptations. That's our primary focus. And again, we're looking at developing countries partly because the climate science says that it's in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, where the climate impacts are going to be the most serious, most severe from the point of view of agriculture and so on. Those are the places in the world where most of the world's poor are found. And people living in poverty are going inevitably to have a harder time adapting. They have fewer resources with which to try to adapt. And so out of concern for poverty, and also out of concern for the implications of different kinds of adaptations that may be done in these regions, we've really focused on understanding adaptation and its likely shape in those regions. Many of these communities are already adapting and on their own, right? So we usually divide, I should say, adaptation into two broad headings. One is planned or policy adaptation, and this is work primarily undertaken by government. National government, perhaps with international assistance, perhaps state-level government. And so most of the talk, most of the analysis has been on what government should do in response to the climate change that is coming. But of course, the people affected and the people most likely to have to do most of the responding are not government agencies, but individual farmers, individual households, firms, and also local communities, different groups outside of organized government. Right? Of course, it could include tribes, and it could include other structures above what you might think of as the household or even community level, but outside of government is where much of the adaptation is going to take place. So we use the term autonomous in distinction from planned adaptation. So many of the people living in poverty in the developing world, especially in Africa and to a very large extent still in South Asia, are involved with agriculture. And agriculture will be hit very hard in these regions by climate change. We think that storms will become more common in some areas. Droughts may become more severe and longer. Paradoxically, floods elsewhere and excessive rain, if you want, may be more of a problem in other areas. And there are a variety of other possible problems, such as spread of pests and diseases and so on. People living in poverty in these areas are often dependent on rain-fed agriculture, so they'll be affected in many ways. So they'll have to adapt. There are several things that people can do and already are doing. Some of it is pretty straightforward. You shift the types of crop varieties that you use. If you're going to be experiencing greater drought, you have to move to more drought-resistant varieties, and so on. You may find yourself switching from agriculture to pastoral activities. You may find yourself in a more arid area than you were used to. You may shift to working with livestock. On the other hand, your traditional pastoral activities might no longer be really viable. The rangelands are just getting too dry. So instead, you might go settle somewhere else. Maybe for agriculture, you might move to cities. So migration of different kinds is a very important kind of adaptation, one that shouldn't really be underestimated. Some of the high-end estimates of how many people are going to have to migrate over the next 50 years in response to climate change are really staggering. Well, the answer is we really don't know how many, but one high estimate suggests maybe 500 million people may ultimately have to migrate for this reason, and that would be, you know, an unprecedented movement of people. But that's a very important way that people, in fact, do find a way to adapt. People can try to find resources in other areas. They don't have water any longer in their area or enough, so they go to another to collect it. They don't have enough forest products, fuel wood and so on in their own area. They'll go to another area to get it. They may change their occupation. They may go back and get education. So there are many things that people can do to adapt.